the lonely widow in a small, bustling alien city, where neon lights flickered above the crowded streets and the hum of life echoed through the narrow alleys. A widow walked alone. Her name was Selara, and she was unlike any other in the city. She was from a far-off planet, and her kind had been misunderstood since they arrived. With pale skin and soft blue eyes, Selara moved through the crowd, trying her best to blend in. But no matter how hard she tried, she was always an outsider. It had not always been this way. Years ago, when she had arrived with her husband, the city had seemed full of promise. They dreamed of a new life in this world of opportunities, but fate was cruel. Her husband fell ill, and within a year he passed away, leaving Selara to fend for herself. Her heart had shattered, and with it, so did her hope. Selara found herself wandering the streets day after day, carrying the burden of loss and the fear of an uncertain future. She had no family here, and her only company was the memories of her husband. As the days passed, the weight of her grief grew heavier. She would sit in empty corners of the city, watching people pass by, living their busy lives, while she was left behind, invisible and forgotten. She didn't have much, just the clothes on her back and a small tattered bag with a few coins she had managed to collect over time. She was no longer the hopeful woman she had once been. Now she was just a shadow of her former self. Her once beautiful hair was tangled, her clothes worn and faded, and her eyes, once full of life, now looked tired and hollow. Selara had become a ghost in this city, a woman ignored by everyone around her. Her stomach growled with hunger, but she didn't dare approach the cafes or shops, knowing she couldn't afford anything. Every time she tried to ask for work, the response was the same: no one wanted to hire her. She was an alien, and that was all people saw. No one cared that she had once been part of a happy family, that she had once dreamed of a better life. Now, all she was a reminder of what others feared, a reminder of the alien invasion that had changed everything. One cold morning, as Selara walked through the busy market district, she saw a small cafe that caught her eye. The sign above the door was simple but welcoming: human calf. Her heart skipped a beat as she gazed through the window, watching the people inside laugh, drink, and enjoy their meals. It looked like a place where people were treated equally, no matter where they came from. As she stood there, looking longingly inside, she noticed a man sitting at a table near the window. He was different from the others. While the others were busy talking and eating, he sat quietly, sipping his drink, his gaze distant, as if lost in thought. His clothes were simple, but there was something about him that made Selara feel a spark of hope. She shook her head, quickly looking away. Hope? What was she thinking? Hope had long abandoned her. She had no place in this world, and no one would ever offer her the kindness she so desperately needed. But as she turned to walk away, something strange happened. The man inside the cafe looked up and caught her eye. He didn't look away, as most people did. Instead, he smiled. It wasn't a mocking smile, nor one of pity. It was a kind, genuine smile, something Selara hadn't seen in a long time. For a moment, she stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Her heart raced. Could it be? Could someone actually notice her, a stranger in this city, and offer her something? It felt too good to be true, but as quickly as the thought had come, Selara pushed it aside. No one cared about her. She was just another lonely widow in a city full of busy, indifferent people. With a heavy heart, she turned away, hoping the man would forget about her. But as she took a few steps, she heard the sound of the cafe door opening. "Excuse me," A soft voice called. It was the man from the cafe. Selara turned slowly, her breath catching in her throat. He was standing there, a friendly expression on his face, as if he had been waiting for her to turn around. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. "I noticed you standing outside. You look like you could use a warm drink. I would like to offer you a seat." Selara's mind raced. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. A human someone who had no reason to care about her was offering her a seat in his cafe. Was this kindness real, or was it just a cruel joke? She hesitated, not knowing what to do. Her instincts told her to walk away, to keep moving, to not get her hopes up. But the warmth in his voice made her want to stay. "I thank you," she managed to say, her voice barely a whisper. She stepped toward him, unsure of what would happen next, but hopeful, for the first time in a long while, that maybe, just maybe, this man was different. The rejected offer, the warmth of the cafe, enveloped Selara as she stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind her. The air was filled with the rich scent of coffee and fresh pastries, a stark contrast to the cold, bitter streets outside. For a moment she stood still, taking in the atmosphere, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. It had been so long since she had felt something as simple as comfort. The man who had spoken to her was now sitting at a corner table, watching her with kind eyes. He motioned for her to come over. "Please, take a seat. It's the least I can do after you've been standing outside for so long." Selara hesitated, glancing around the cafe. The room was filled with chatter, laughter, and the sound of clinking cups. People sat at tables, chatting with friends or reading their holodevices, but none of them seemed to notice her. She was just another alien in a world that didn't belong to her. Still, she walked over to the man's table, her heart beating faster with each step. He stood up as she approached, offering her the chair opposite his. "I'm Nathan," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I own this place. I've seen you walking by for the last few days. Are you new to the city?" Selara nodded, unsure of what to say. "Yes, I'm new." "I don't worry," Nathan interrupted with a smile. "I'm not here to pry, but I've seen the way you've been looking around, like you're searching for something." Selara felt her throat tighten. She hadn't realized how obvious her loneliness had become. She glanced down at the table, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her cup. She wanted to respond, but words failed her. No one had ever noticed her before, not like this. Nathan sat back, taking a sip of his coffee. "Listen," he said after a moment, "I know things aren't easy. It's hard for everyone, no matter where we come from. But I think you've got something to offer. How would you like to work here? I could use someone to help with cleaning, serving, or anything else you're comfortable with." Selara's eyes widened in surprise. A job? Could this man really be offering her a chance to work? For a moment, the idea felt impossible. She had been rejected by so many others, turned away without a second thought. How could she be worthy of a job here, in a place where humans came and went, living their lives as if they didn't have a care in the world? Her thoughts swirled, the fear rising in her chest. She had to be careful. If she said yes, would she end up disappointed? Would she be laughed at, just like all the other times? No, she told herself. This was different. Nathan had seen something in her. But even as hope sparked in her heart, doubt crept in. Before she could respond, a voice from across the room interrupted her thoughts. A group of well-dressed people entered the cafe, laughing as they approached the counter. They were humans, their loud voices filled with confidence, oblivious to the fact that Selara was listening. "Did you hear?" one of them said with a mocking tone. "They've started hiring aliens now. What a joke." Another person laughed, adding, "Who would want to work with them? You think they can handle it?" The words stung, cutting through the air like a cold knife. Selara's heart sank as she heard the laughter, the casual cruelty that people often showed to those they considered beneath them. She looked down at her hands, suddenly feeling small and insignificant. The offer of a job from Nathan now seemed like a distant dream, one that was too good to be true. Nathan, sensing the shift in her mood, glanced at the group and then back at Selara. His expression hardened for a moment, but then he spoke in a calm, reassuring tone. "Don't listen to them," he said softly. "I've worked hard to make sure this place is a welcoming space for everyone. If you want the job, it's yours. But if you don't feel ready, that's okay too." The rejection from the group still echoed in Selara's mind, and for a moment she almost pulled away, telling herself that she wasn't strong enough to face this. But then she looked up at Nathan. His eyes weren't filled with pity or judgment. There was only kindness, the kind of kindness she hadn't seen in years. "You mean it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You would really give me a job?" Nathan smiled, nodding. "I wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it. You've got nothing to prove to anyone here. Just be yourself." Selara felt something stir within her, a flicker of hope, something she hadn't felt in so long. But as the group continued to laugh in the background, she hesitated. Could she really trust this human? Could she walk into this new life, despite the judgment, the rejection, the fear? The question hung in the air between them, and for the first time in a long while, Selara felt a choice before her. A choice to step into the unknown or to retreat into the familiar darkness. A new beginning. Zella sat still, her heart racing as she pondered Nathan's offer. The laughter of the group behind her felt like an endless echo in her ears, but Nathan's calm, reassuring voice cut through the noise. His words held a promise, opportunity she hadn't thought possible. It was tempting, far more than anything else she had ever been offered in this strange city. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. Could she really do this? Could she trust that this kindness wasn't just another illusion? After all, she had learned that nothing in this world came easily for someone like her. But something deep inside urged her to try to take a chance on herself, to break away from the shadows she had been hiding in for so long. "I'll do it," she said softly, more to herself than to Nathan. The words felt foreign coming out of her mouth, but they were real. She had made a choice. Nathan's eyes brightened as he nodded. "Great, you'll start tomorrow, then." He reached over and handed her a small slip of paper. "This is the schedule, and here's the address of my other cafe, where you'll work most days. It's a small start, but we'll see how things go. I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Selara stared at the paper in her hands, still feeling a bit dazed. She had never been handed something like this before. In all her years of wandering the streets, she had never felt so seen. It was as though a door had opened, one she never thought would be available to her. "Thank you," she whispered, unable to express just how much his offer meant to her. She had spent so much time alone, invisible, as though she didn't matter. Now, for the first time, she felt like she had a place in this world. Nathan smiled again, his expression gentle. "Don't mention it. Just come tomorrow, and we'll get started." The next morning, Selara woke up with a nervous excitement she hadn't felt in years. The familiar emptiness of her small, cold room felt a little warmer now, as though the simple act of having a purpose could bring light to the darkest corners of her life. She had cleaned herself up as best as she could, wearing the few clothes she had left worn and faded, but presentable. She didn't own anything new, but the feeling of hope was enough to make her feel like she was wearing something special. When she arrived at the cafe, it was a quiet morning. Nathan was already there, getting things ready. The small space smelled of fresh bread and brewing coffee, and the soft hum of the machines in the background filled the air with an oddly comforting rhythm. Nathan greeted her with a friendly smile, already in his apron, looking like a man who had spent years in this business. "Good to see you, Selara. Ready to start?" She nodded, unsure of what to expect. I'm ready." They spent the next few hours working side by side. Nathan showed her how to clean the tables, prepare the simple dishes, and even how to serve the drinks. To her surprise, she found that she wasn't as clumsy as she had feared. Her hands, though scarred by time and sorrow, moved with surprising confidence as she learned each new task. But as the day went on, Selara couldn't help but notice the glances from the few customers that trickled in, the curious looks, the quiet whispers. It was subtle, but it was there. She had never been a part of a world like this before. She was an alien in a human space, and she couldn't shake the feeling that people saw her as different. Despite her growing discomfort, she pushed forward. Nathan's presence helped, as he never seemed to notice the stares or the quiet judgment from the patrons. His attention was always on her, showing her the ropes, making sure she was comfortable. The more she worked, the more she realized that this wasn't just about a job, it was about rebuilding herself. By the time the cafe began to fill with customers for lunch, Selara had learned the basics. She still had a lot to master, but she was starting to feel a sense of belonging. There was something reassuring in the routine, something that made her feel less like an outsider. At one point, a young man approached the counter, ordering a coffee. He glanced at Selara as he handed over the payment, and for a moment their eyes met. There was something in his gaze, something that wasn't judgment or fear, but curiosity. Selara quickly looked away, her heart pounding. She wasn't used to being looked at that way. She had spent so much time being ignored, dismissed. But here, in this small cafe, there was the possibility of being seen for who she really was, not for where she came from or what she had lost. Nathan noticed the interaction, and after the man had left, he turned to Selara. "You did great today," he said with a smile. "You'll get used to this. People come and go, but you're here to stay." Selara couldn't help but smile in return. For the first time in a long time, she felt something inside her stir, something more than just gratitude. It was the feeling of hope, growing stronger with every passing moment. A glimpse of hope. The days turned into weeks, and Selara slowly found herself settling into the rhythm of life at the cafe. Each morning, she would wake up with a quiet excitement, eager to start her day. Nathan's cafe had become a small sanctuary. For her, a place where, for the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She was learning, growing, and with each passing day, a piece of the weight she carried seemed to lift as the cafe became busier with each day. Selara's confidence grew. She learned the names of regular customers, started making small talk with them, and began to feel like she was becoming a part of something. She still faced whispers and stares, but they didn't sting as much anymore. Nathan's constant support and belief in her kept her grounded. His presence gave her the strength to face the moments when others made her feel out of place. One afternoon, As the cafe was bustling with the lunch crowd, something unexpected happened. A well-dressed couple entered the cafe, the man with a stern look on his face, and the woman with an air of superiority. They approached the counter, their eyes scanning the room as if they were judging the very air they breathed. When they saw Selara behind the counter, a flicker of surprise crossed the woman's face. "I didn't know you hired aliens here," the woman said in a clipped tone, her voice dripping with disdain. "I suppose that's what you get when you open your doors to everyone." Selara froze, her heart hammering in her chest. She had heard similar comments before, but something about this woman's tone made her feel small, as though she were nothing more than a mistake in the cafe's carefully curated world. She glanced at Nathan, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped forward, his expression calm but firm. "Everyone is welcome here," Nathan said, his voice steady. "We hire based on ability, not where someone comes from. Selara is a hard-working member of this team, and if you don't like it, you're free to leave." The woman's face flushed with irritation, but her husband placed a hand on her arm, his gaze shifting uncomfortably as he looked at Nathan. "Fine," he muttered, "but I don't think I'll be coming back." As the couple turned and left, Selara stood still, feeling the weight of their judgment. But then, Nathan's voice cut through her thoughts. "You did nothing wrong," he said, his tone soft. "Don't let them get to you." Selara looked at him, her throat tight. She wanted to say something, to thank him for standing up for her, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. It wasn't the first time she had faced discrimination, but something about Nathan's defense made her feel stronger, more resilient. She wasn't just a stranger in this city anymore. She was a part of something. And as the door closed behind the couple, Selara realized something. She was no longer the lonely widow who had wandered these streets in search of hope. She was becoming someone else, someone with a future. Later that evening, as the cafe began to quiet down, Selara found herself wiping down the counter, her hands moving automatically. Nathan was in the back, cleaning up for the night. For the first time in days, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the loneliness, the rejection, and the endless feeling of being an outsider. But now she had something more than just a job. She had dignity. She had hope. And for the first time in a long while, Selara felt a small, steady flame of possibility flicker inside her. As she looked out the window at the night sky, something deep inside her whispered, "This is only the beginning." The power of kindness. The weeks continued to pass, and Selara's life at the cafe had slowly transformed. No longer was she the lonely widow wandering the streets, unsure of where to go or who to trust. Each morning, she walked into the cafe with a purpose. Each evening, she left with a sense of fulfillment that had once seemed so distant. The once bleak and empty days were now filled with work, laughter, and small connections that reminded her that she was not invisible. But one day, a crisis struck the cafe, a moment that would test Selara's newfound sense of belonging and courage. It was a busy afternoon, and the cafe was filled with its usual crowd. The clatter of dishes, the hiss of the coffee machine, and the low murmur of conversation made it a familiar, comforting environment. Selara was preparing an order at the counter when she heard a loud crash from the back of the cafe. Her head snapped toward the kitchen, where she saw a young employee, her face pale, holding her arm. "Are you okay?" Selara called out, rushing to the kitchen. The young woman, Emma, winced as she tried to put weight on her arm, which was clearly injured. The floor was covered in broken glass from a large coffee pot that had slipped from her hands. I'm sorry, Emma stammered, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't mean to stop, Selara said gently, placing a hand on Emma's uninjured shoulder. It's not your fault. But the sight of Emma's injury was only part of the problem. The cafe was still packed with customers, and without Emma to help, they would be short-staffed. Selara's heart raced as she quickly assessed the situation. Nathan was in the back storage room, and he wouldn't be able to help right away. Selara had never been in charge before. She had always been the one in the background, the one who followed orders. But now, there was no one else. Taking a deep breath, she looked at Emma again, who was trying her best to steady herself. Go sit down and rest. I'll take care of things. Emma nodded gratefully and made her way to the corner of the cafe, holding her arm close to her chest. Selara looked around, assessing the orders that needed to be completed. There were drinks to be made, tables to be cleared, and new orders coming in every minute. But Selara didn't hesitate. She jumped into action, using the skills she had learned over the past weeks. She poured coffee with steady hands, served pastries with a smile, and kept the customers satisfied despite the chaos. Every task felt like a test, but she rose to the challenge. She didn't know how long she had been working, but time seemed to stretch as the cafe buzzed with the frantic energy of a busy lunch hour. Finally, Nathan emerged from the storage room, his face full of concern. He took in the scene: Selara serving drinks with confidence, customers chatting comfortably, and Emma sitting in the corner, resting. For a moment, he just stood there, amazed. You've done it, Nathan said, his voice filled with admiration. Paused, wiping the sweat from her brow. We've done it, she corrected him, smiling. But I couldn't have done it without Emma's help. Nathan nodded, stepping forward to check on Emma. Good job, Selara, he said softly, his voice full of pride. You've really stepped up today. Selara felt a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like an outsider. In that moment, she was part of something, real something, that depended on her, just as much as she depended on it. And it wasn't just the work that mattered. It was the people around her, the kindness they showed, and the way that small acts of trust and support had helped her heal. The following days were calmer, but that afternoon stayed with some. She realized that, more than the job itself, it was the sense of community, the people she worked with, and the care they shared for one another that made this place special. She was no longer just a widow struggling to survive. She was a member of a team, a valued part of the cafe's family, and in that quiet, ordinary way, she began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had found something worth fighting for. The unexpected gift days following the cafe's crisis were filled with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Selara had proven to herself and to Nathan that she could handle more than she had ever believed. But deep down, she still wondered if this newfound confidence was just a temporary feeling. Could she truly keep this job, this place, this life? Or was it just another illusion waiting to be shattered? But Nathan had been different from anyone she had ever met. Every time she doubted herself, he was there, reminding her of her worth. His belief in her had become a lifeline. And, as the days passed, she found herself beginning to believe in herself. 2.1 chilly evening, after a long day of work, Nathan pulled Selara aside as she was cleaning up. She glanced at him curiously, wondering what this was about. Selara, Nathan began, his voice uncharacteristically serious. I've been thinking, Selara stopped what she was doing, her heart quickening with nerves. What about? I've been watching you these past few months, Nathan said, taking a step closer to her. You've worked harder than anyone else here, and you've become a key part of the team. But it's not just about work. You've shown something far more important: resilience, strength, and heart. Selara's breath caught in her throat. She had always considered herself to be weak, broken by loss. But here, with Nathan's words, she felt something shift inside her. Was it possible? Could she really be those things? Nathan paused, watching her closely. I know you've had a rough past, Selara, and I can't pretend to understand what it's been like, but I want to offer you something, a chance to do more than just work here. Selara looked at him, confusion and hope mixing in her chest. What do you mean? Nathan smiled softly, a glint of determination in his eyes. I'm opening a new cafe next month, a larger space, and I need someone to help run it. Someone who understands the heart of this place. Someone who knows what it means to truly serve others. I want that person to be you. For a moment, Selara was speechless. The words felt like a dream, too good to be true. Nathan wanted her to help run a cafe. Not just work as a server, but to manage the place. She had never imagined something like this. This was more than a job, it was a chance to build something, to become someone who could make a real difference. But I don't know if I can, Selara said, her voice trembling. I've never done anything like that before. I don't even know where to start. Nathan stepped closer, his voice firm but encouraging. You've already started. Every day you've shown up here, you've proven that you have what it takes. I believe in you, Selara, and I wouldn't offer you this if I didn't think you could do it. The words sank into Selara's heart, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future that was more than just survival. The thought of managing a cafe, of having the power to shape something, to help others in the way Nathan had helped hurt, was both overwhelming and exhilarating. Are you sure? She asked quietly, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. I mean, ... Are you sure I'm ready? Nathan smiled warmly. I wouldn't offer it if I didn't think you were. You've been ready for this from the moment you walked through the door. Selara's mind raced, the reality of the situation settling in. She had come so far from the woman who had wandered the streets alone, broken and without hope. This was a gift beyond anything she had ever dreamed of. And yet, it was more than just the opportunity. It was the belief that someone saw her potential, that she was worthy of something greater than just being another forgotten soul. I'll do it, Selara said finally, her voice steady with resolve. I'll help you. I'll make it work. Nathan's smile deepened, his eyes filled with pride. I knew you would. As the days passed and Selara prepared for the new cafe, she couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. She had gone from being a stranger in a new world to someone who was trusted, valued, and given the chance to build her future. The journey was far from over, but Selara felt ready for it. She had found something in herself she had never known existed: a strength, a purpose, and a sense of belonging. And in that quiet moment, she knew one thing for certain: this was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, dignity, and endless possibilities. The new beginning, the new cafe, was a beautiful, spacious building nestled in the heart of the city, far from the crowded streets and dark alleys where Selara had once wandered. The space was filled with large windows, letting in the golden light of the morning sun, and it had a warm, inviting atmosphere that made it feel like home. For the first time in her life, Selara felt as though she was standing at the threshold of something incredible. This wasn't just a new job. It was the beginning of a life she had once thought impossible. The first few days were overwhelming. Selara was in charge of managing the cafe, helping with everything from hiring new staff to organizing the menu, and overseeing the day-to-day operations. She had never imagined herself in such a position, but with Nathan by her side, guiding her every step of the way, she found herself rising to the challenge. She quickly learned that managing a cafe was no easy feat. The pressures were constant there. Were customers to serve, orders to fill, and staff to manage. But as the days passed, Selara felt herself growing more confident, more capable. She realized that she wasn't just filling a role. She was creating something special, something that had meaning. Every decision she made, every task she completed, felt like a small victory, a reminder of how far she had come. There were still moments of doubt. Sometimes, when the cafe was bustling with customers, Selara would catch a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the window, and she would wonder if it was all real. Could she really be this person now, the one in charge, the one who had a purpose? But then, she would look around and see the smiles of her staff, the way they trusted her, and the genuine connections she had made with the customers. And in those moments, the doubts would fade away. She wasn't alone anymore. She had built something, a community, a family, and it was real. One afternoon, as Selara was making her rounds in the cafe, a familiar face walked in. It was Emma, the young woman who had once injured her arm at the original cafe. She had recovered and was now standing in front of Selara, looking nervous but hopeful. I heard you opened this place," Emma said hesitantly. "I wanted to come by and see how you were doing." Selara smiled, her heart warming at the sight of Emma. "It's been a journey, but it's going well. How are you?" Emma glanced around the cafe, her eyes wide with admiration. "It's amazing. You've really done something incredible here. I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be the one running things." Selara laughed softly. "I never thought it either, but here we are." Emma hesitated for a moment before speaking again. I've been thinking about what you said, about how things can change. I'm ready to start fresh, you know. I wanted to ask if you might consider giving me a job here." Selara looked at her, surprised but touched. "Of course. You've got the experience, and you're part of this family. You've been with us from the beginning." The two women shared a moment of understanding, both knowing how far they had come. It wasn't just about jobs or success. It was about the trust, the kindness, and the belief in each other that had brought them this far. As they worked together, Selara realized that this was what truly mattered, not the size of the cafe, or how many customers came through the door, but the connections they made and the impact they had on each other's lives. As the months went on, the cafe became a success. It grew in popularity, attracting people from all walks of life. But for Selara, it wasn't just the business that mattered. It was the way she had found her place in the world again, how she had been given the opportunity to help others find their own sense of purpose. One evening, after closing time, Selara and Nathan stood by the large windows, looking out at the city as the night lights began to twinkle in the distance. "You've done it," Nathan said, his voice full of pride. Selara looked at him, a soft smile on her lips. "We've done it." And as she gazed out into the future, Selara knew that this was just the beginning. The path ahead would be full of challenges, but she was no longer afraid. She had the strength to face anything, and she knew that, with the right people by her side, she could build a future full of hope, dignity, and possibility. She had found her place.